Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Faisal, Kassim, and welcome to the live real talk. Oh my God, I don't know what happened to this coffee that I took just a few minutes ago. Aban, anyway, guys, welcome to the live real talk, and my name is Faisal Kassim, and tonight we are talking about martyr citizenship. There are communities who are regarded as first-class citizens where when they apply for documentation, it won't take minutes, it won't take ages. It will be very few minutes and they'll have something in their pockets. And of course, living in a country where a lot of services, particularly government services, depend on the identification, either the passport or the national ID. This is one of the key requirements for you to be able to access some of these services, for you to be able to enter some of these doors. Just to paint a picture into what I'm talking about, let's listen to Mustafa Mahmoud during a TED Talk.
Let's all imagine a situation where for you to access higher education, you need an identity card. A situation where for you to access banking services, you need an ID card. A situation where even to access this building, you need an ID card. And a situation where for you to enjoy your freedom of movement, you need an ID card. That's not a theoretical concept, it's a reality. I know many of the people in this room come from states that have such restrictions. And that is the situation in Kenya. So now imagine denying an individual that document. How will that person live? How will that person be able to fend for his family?
And just in case you thought that he was just making up those stories, let's listen to a victim, actually. I was about to say a patient, but this is a victim of someone who's been looking for ID for the past few years without bearing any fruits. Let's listen to her story.
One of the problems that I have is I cannot access my ID. Right now I'm in Chief's camp. I had come to follow up on my ID, and it has not been a good work. It has been tedious, it has been exhausting, it has been very, very difficult for me. It's been 2 years now. I've gone through vetting for such a long time now. I cannot access my NHIF. I've tried that. They told me if you cannot bring the vitals, which is ID, then there's no need for you to apply for the NHIF. Right now I want to further my education in the university, but I cannot be able to further my education because of ID.
Thank you so much, Aban, and thank you so much for playing those videos. Now I'm sure you understand, or you have a picture in your mind of what exactly we are talking about right here tonight in the studio. Joining me to discuss this matter in depth and for them to share with us some of the experiences they've been going through, I have the co-director of citizenship rights from Namati, that is Mustafa Mahmoud. Thank you so much for making time for us. And of course we have Maka Yusuf, who is a paralegal at the Nubian Rights Forum, someone whose job on a daily basis is to try and ensure those who are underprivileged are able to get the documentation just like any other citizens in this country. Maka Yusuf, karibu sana.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for making time for us this evening.
Anytime.
I mean, Mustafa, first of all, thank you so much for the program. And for our viewers who are watching us, they have been watching a short documentary about citizenship rights and how difficult it is to access documentation in this country. Mustafa, what inspired you as a person to actually pursue this path and get to this point where you're pushing for some of these, those who are underprivileged to get the documentation? What inspired you as a person?
Well, I wish it was me as a person alone. It was a group of like-minded people who had already gone through the process. One of them, one of my mentors, the late Adam Hussein Adam, who had already gotten a scholarship. He was playing rugby, but he couldn't even travel to go and play rugby professionally, and he was playing for the national team. Because of his name, he couldn't get a passport. Oh. And other experiences within the organization. And at that time, there was a decision from the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child that basically was citing that by discriminating against the Nubian child, the government was exposing the Nubian child to the risk of statelessness. And statelessness is basically mtu hana uraia yoyote. You are not a Kenyan, you are not another, you don't have any other nationality. So how could that happen is by default denying a father a document. That child cannot get a birth certificate because the father and the mother does not have an ID. So the whole aspect of movement around it, and when we began the project, we were being slapped by the blanket cover of national security. But now at least we can speak about it. At that time, it was very hostile to speak about nationality. And we were not only talking about the Nubian children, it was talking about all children who are being subjected at the age of 18 to vetting. So it is a Somali in northeastern, it's a Swahili at the coast, it's a Kenyan Arab at the coast, basically because of your name, either Mustafa, Ahmed, and you're being subjected to vetting, you are being put at a risk of being stateless. Because imagine not having a document. Yes, you'll be called an undocumented person, but your child could either become stateless in the future. So that was the inspiration behind the entire movement around speaking around nationality rights. And yes, I was in the shoe that Maka was in. My mother organization was Nubian Rights Forum. I've been mentored by the Council of Elders and a lot of people. And that was the basis of the entire project that began from Kibra, and now it's around the country.
And inshallah is going to be global as well, inshallah, right?
Inshallah.
Advocating for the rights globally. Maka, for the past 26 years, Nubian Rights Forum has been in existence. 26 years. Yet, until today, as Horizon TV, we are playing that feature, that documentary, of course, courtesy of Namati, that we always are grateful. We always play that documentary over and over and over and over again. 26 years of existence. Still, you are at work. That means there's still more to be done. This is actually the 26th year, correct? So, like, what are some of your experiences dealing with these people on the ground when you're chasing for their identities?
When you're talking about the people, are you talking about the beneficiaries or the government officials?
The beneficiaries that you deal with.
The community, that
yes,
is.
the community.
So the experience normally is just for us to support them, the community members. Because as you've said, as Mustafa has already mentioned, from the videos you've also seen, the experience is tedious. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of delays. And some people even get discouraged and they decide, no, we don't want to, we can't, we don't want this documented after all. Ataneza kabila your document. So as NRF, when Kina Mustafa started the organization, as he said, he was part of the Nubian Rights Forum. They started the organization to try and bridge the gap between the government and the community members, to make the community members understand of the challenges that they're going through and how to go about it. So my daily job, my daily work is to teach the community about their rights on documentation, so that then whenever they go, they can speak for themselves. Most of the people in the community, they can't stand and speak for themselves. Why? They feel like they're oppressed. And when you're oppressed, you feel like you don't have a voice. So ours is to empower them, to empower the community. Know about your rights, know about the law, what the law states about this document. And then, when you go there, don't allow to be pushed left, right, and center.
That is during the vetting or during the application process? In
the application process. Because the process is you start like, for example, the Nubian child goes for a vetting twice a week, unlike the other communities.
What?
Yes. The other communities, you can go in the morning from Monday to Friday. From 8 in the morning to 4 p.m. you will be served. And you leave the office, the registration office, with your waiting card. But for a Nubian child, there's only 2 days. Tuesday and Thursday. From 9 in the morning, actually 10, to midday. That's
so
when
2 hours.
2 hours.
2 days a week.
2 days a week.
Coming to 4 hours the whole week.
The whole week. Yes. And you start the process from the elders vetting, the Nubian elders. So we have 3 kinds of vettings. You start with the elders, then you go to the national vetting, whereby now the government officials vet you. And then there's the third one, where it's called the DSIC. This is the NIS. It consists of security team. Nairobi, all Kenya National Security Team. Yeah.
So for you to get that identity, and then is it a guarantee when you go through all this process you'll get your ID?
It's not. It's not a guarantee.
I want to take it a notch higher.
Whoa.
I want to take it a notch higher. Sometimes when I used to work for Nubian Rights Forum, I used to think it is only our problem until I went to Northeastern, that is Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, and the other areas. There, it's even worse. There, you don't apply on Tuesday and Thursday. There, you first make it to the chief's list. So the chief populates every person who has reached the age of 18. Then he sends his list to the DC for them to schedule vetting for that sub-county. So they do like every location, rotational. Every month there's a different location being vetted. So before you make it to that list, you also pay between 2,000 and 10,000 for you to be...
For you to be shortlisted in the chief's list.
Basically, they're saying you're contributing to the allowance, your vetting committee, so that the vetting committee can come and vet.
This is backdoor bribery, man. So if I don't, what if I can't afford it even to the 2,000?
You know, unfortunately, the reason as to why we are beginning this conversation is because we had made it so normal.
We have normalized it.
We've normalized it that people feel like this is our right. We are paying us an allowance to come to a very remote area, but that is their job. If you've decided that you're going to discriminate me, don't make me pay you to discriminate me. So it goes worse. Yeah? So like in Northeastern, you can only apply either between 1 to 10 months. So if your village has already passed, you'll have to wait until the other villages continue with vetting, then they come back to your village again.
No.
So it's crazy. And unfortunately, we've been making it seem normal, and that's why we are beginning that conversation. Is it about time we speak about this problem? Tumezoea kuficha aibu yetu. Tunaona kama,
we don't want to show that in the public.
We make it like we deserve it. Oh, national security. But a mwananchi does not have the authority to enforce national security. It is a responsibility of the state to provide security.
And that's why we pay taxes, are we not?
But if you're punishing me for insecurity, then...
I want you to hold it there because masiku za mshahara ndizo zimefika and you need to pay your bills because there's some advertisement that needs to be played. So, Aban, I hope you're going to play those advertisements in the shortest minutes possible. And then we get back. Let's find out. I've seen on Twitter someone saying that his 6-year-old was subjected to vetting when he wanted to apply for the new generation passport. 6-year-old. I don't know. What happens in the vetting? What kind of questions will a 6-year-old answer at the vetting? Let's find out this and much more after the break. Aban.
HorizonTV, the beacon for the nation.
KIPS Technical College is one of the largest technical colleges established and mandated to operate by the TVET Authority. We are a leading institution offering high quality and accessible technical and professional training through a rich curriculum and a professional faculty. We offer diploma, certificate, and artisan courses in business management, journalism and media studies, community development, information and communication technology, hospitality and tourism. Our students enjoy a serene study environment with well-equipped laboratories and workshops. We offer full-time and evening classes, distance and e-learning. We have 6 campuses located within Nairobi, with Philadelphia campus at Philadelphia Building opposite Afya Center, Tomboya Street.
Our January 2023 intake is ongoing. Apply now to get the best training. For more information, call 0721 134851 or visit our website at www.kips.ac.ke. KIPS Technical College, your sure path to success.
Tauhid Muslim High School ni shule sekondari ya wavulana na wasichana iliyoko Malindi yenye day na boarding na ina usafiri kwa wanafunzi wa day. Pia ina integration, yani masomo madrasa kama vile Quran, hadith, fiqh, sirra, tauhid na lugha yanafundishwa. Tauhid Muslim High School inachukua wanafunzi wa Kiislamu na wasiokuwa Waislamu. Pia watoto wanaswali swala 5 kwa jamaa na chakula ni kama cha nyumbani. Kwa sasa inawatangazia nafasi za kidato cha kwanza hadi cha 3. Kwa maelezo zaidi piga simu kwa nambari 0702483777 au 0738483777. Tauhid Muslim High School, kwa elimu bora.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
That 4 minutes past 8 o'clock. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Faisal, Kassim, and welcome back to Live Real Talk. When you're talking about martyr citizenship, are these people who are being frustrated to get documentation regarded as second-class citizens? Don't they pay taxes? Or maybe they're not paying enough? Or maybe they don't just deserve it? Or maybe they should be taken to another country where they belong? Are they not citizens of this country, right? In the previous segment, we've been told that in some places people are paying up to 2,000 shillings, up to 10,000, from 2,000 to 10,000 shillings, just to make it to the chief's list, which is regarded as more or less the first step, first tier of voting. And you can go up to the 4th or 5th tier of voting. But again, from what age does this voting start? Mustafa, from your experience, in what age?
So for ID, obviously, you can only get an ID when you reach 18.
Yes.
But there was a recent circular for passport that required all children of our names and our religion to be vetted to get a passport.
Even infants?
So infants are supposed to be vetted. So
yes.
Indirectly, even your child is doubted that it's your child. Because basically that child cannot answer those questions.
Besides so the fact that I'm Kenyan and my mother was Kenyan and father was Kenyan.
Yes. So yeah, it's very important. You see, the trick bit is, in Kenya you can get nationality by 2 ways, by birth or by registration. Yes. So by birth, it's if either of your parents is a Kenyan at the time of your birth.
Qualify.
So imagine both parents have IDs, both of them have passports. They have your birth certificate with your names and their names on them. But there's still doubt that, are you still really a Kenyan?
Am I really Kenyan?
At that age. So you see, it's becoming worse. If it has come to our children, we kept quiet when it was us happening to us. I was like, mwanaume ni kujikaza, si ndio? Sasa ni watoi.
Wow. Tough one. Maka, beneficiaries, roughly, how many do you see per day? How many people walk into your offices to seek or rather ask for your assistance to get some of these documents?
Per day?
On average, 5, 6, 7, 8?
I can say 20.
Per day?
Per day, 20. Or sometimes even more. Like now when the schools are closed, it's even more because that's when most of the teenagers turning 18 thinking of applying for their IDs. So when the schools are closed, we can even go to 30, 40, 50.
And what are some of their stories? I mean, this number, these people that are coming to seek for assistance, what are some of their stories that really stand, what are some of those stories that stand out for you?
We have a scenario whereby there's this mzee, a Nubian mzee, famously known as Nguluks in Kibra. So Nguluks served in the Kenya police way back. Nguluks now is around 80 years, Mustafa, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, he's around 80 years. So he served in the Kenya police some years back. Nguluks lost his first generation ID. And getting the second generation ID has been a tough one. So Gulux came to us. He started applying himself, but he couldn't go nowhere. And this was a civil servant. As we are told, a civil servant doesn't have to go through vetting. But Gulux has had it rough. He couldn't access the government pension for above 70 years. He couldn't get NHIF. He couldn't get nothing, absolutely nothing. So he came to the office, interacted with Mustafa, and we started engaging in his case. We worked with him to the registrations office. He even remembered his badge number, his number, but still the records could not be found. The registration said they couldn't find Gulux's number. Gulux only, luck came in when we petitioned the government during Huduma number case. So he was one of the witnesses. He went and submitted his affidavit, and he spoke about his experience and all that. And back then the Interior Minister was present at the court. So after Ngulux talking about his experience at the court and giving his submissions and affidavit, a week later, Ngulux was called at the registration office. Yeah. So he was singled out. You see, this is a whole generation, a whole community thing. But this person, since he was the one who went there, and the government doesn't want their name to be tarnished,
and he was
since he was working in the government, yes, he was working in the government. He even have his badge number and all that. He could tell it vividly how he worked with the government, what he did for the government. He was singled out, called at the registrations office. Gulux filled the forms and he was issued with a waiting card after almost 3 years going to the registrations office. Even after that, after being issued with the waiting card, Gulux had to wait again for a year and a half. No. A year and a half to be issued with that ID. So you see, not
4.5 years.
Yes, not Gulux alone. Another scenario is that we had a radio presenter, a local radio presenter, who was murdered in Kibra sometime last year but one. He was murdered by some thugs in Kibra. That man had a wife. The wife was our client, Mariam. Mariam started applying for ID since she was 18 years old. Mariam produced the only thing she lacked was a birth certificate. She had her parents' document, her primary living certificate, her grandparents' IDs, her parents' IDs. But she was told that she had to produce a birth certificate. Being 18 years in Kenya, without an ID, you can't get a birth certificate. Without a birth certificate, you can't get an ID.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yes. So, here is Mariam fighting to get the document. The husband was the only person who had the document. She was doing business. She's a business lady. She cooks mandazis and all that. She couldn't open a bank account to save her monies. She couldn't get NHIF for herself and her kids since she doesn't have an ID. She couldn't generally access hata kazi za mkono zingine apart from your self-employment. So when when we were still struggling with her, unfortunately the husband died. She has kids turning 18 years old. They couldn't get an ID because the father is dead. And the mother doesn't have an ID. The mother doesn't have an ID. Who will swear an affidavit? Who will come and put the thumbprint? Where will the thumbprint be verified? The mother doesn't have an ID. So we struggled with Mariam, worked with her until I think her case was 4.5 years, also almost 5 years. That's when she got an ID. And she got the ID out of, I think when we were following up at the registration office and the scenario and the story, because the husband was also kind of prominent. He was working at the local court, Kibra law courts, as an interpreter. Yeah. So when the case went, we went to the registrar's office, and then there was no way the children could be helped. She was also almost becoming a grandmother. And the child doesn't have her child doesn't have a birth certificate. Her grandchild is not going to get a birth certificate. The son is 18 years. He can't get a birth certificate. Yani, her children. This is a generation. You're seeing the picture.
Where will these people get employment, bank accounts, their voting rights, government services, NSSF, NHF, all this?
That's how tough it is.
Mustafa, you're itching, you're burning. Come on,
that's the whole scenario.
You see, we've normalized it so much.
It's because maybe we don't know these stories, bro.
It's, you know, the problem is that when someone is going to apply for an ID, it goes as an individual, not as a society. So, kila mtu asema, mimi pia nilipitia, it's okay. So, imagine, because to paint the picture home is that when you reach, like for Mimi's case, she started applying at 18. She didn't get her ID until she passed even at 23. When you pass 23, as Maka had said, there's another tier of vetting. It's called District Security and Intelligence Committee. That one sits to deliberate about security of the district. Their agenda is not vetting, but once in a while, they call you for vetting. They had a list of over 30 people. We had to make noise for them to try to vet both the two clients that she's talking about. Because they could meet every month and they don't call anybody. And the day that they call you, they expect you to be home. Because you don't have an ID. Agenda. You don't have an ID, where are you going? So you're not supposed to be working. You're supposed to be sleeping in the house. So they tell you come within half an hour. If you don't come, you've already been thrown out of the list for another day. So because it's not in the agenda, they expect you anytime that they call you to come and avail yourself. And that is the problem. They first delay you until you reach the age of 23. The time that you reach 23, they start asking you, where were you?
Where have you been?
You're supposed to have applied at 18.
But you were there all alone chasing. Like, honestly, in what world does this make sense?
Yes, it's crazy. You know, it's a sad state of affair that these things are happening at the backyard of this capital. Nairobi just here. Because when you're talking about this verifying their nationality, these people have no border point. So it beats the logic of saying that these people could have migrated from anywhere.
From any other country.
Which border point is in Kibera? Wilson.
You're very expensive. You fly in and out of the country.
Maybe to add on that.
Allow me just to hold you. Allow me kindly just to ask you, please hold on that thought. Again, some more bills to be paid right here. Let's pay the bills. Aban.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation. Quote of the day. Imam Malik bin Anas said, I am but a man. I make mistakes sometimes, and I am correct sometimes. So examine my opinions and accept anything that agrees with the book and Sunnah, and leave anything that does not agree with the book and Sunnah. Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Indeed, the beacon of the nation, Horizon TV, where we're talking about matters as live, as real as they are, and thus the live real talk right here tonight. You've heard about the struggles that people go through. Someone who was a police officer for several years, but again, it took him 4.5 years to be able to get an ID. And that, by the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it was courtesy of him being a witness in a case against the government. That's how he got to be known, right? This other person, prominent husband, well known, very well much connected, but again, 3.5 years, correct, Maka? For me, 3.5 years to get that documentation. That is subtracting the several years since she was 18 trying to fight to get that documentation. These are the struggles that people are going through. How do you expect these people to survive? How do you expect these people to get employment? How do you expect them to pay for the National Health Insurance Fund? How do you expect them to save with the NSSF the way the president is pushing? How do you expect them to access scholarships and spaces and other places and services, right? How do you expect them to move? How do you expect them to survive? Where when you meet a police officer on the street, the first question you're going to be asked, kijana wapi kipande, wapi kitambulisho? And if you don't have a kitambulisho, then you're already a suspect. You're going to be arrested. How do you expect these people to live? I mean, I'm sure, do you know someone who has gone through such experience? We're going to talk about that on our social media or Twitter space sometimes next week. But again, right now, let's look at these people actively involved in their day-to-day lives, trying to help the underprivileged, the quote-unquote second-class citizens to get some of these documents. The struggle has been long. Maka, 26 years, since 1997, you've been chasing and pushing and fighting for the Nubians' rights, right? And documentation. For how many more years will you continue fighting for this? For how long?
Can say we will fight until the day that the government recognizes us as the Kenyan citizens, that we don't need to be vetted because we don't border any other country, that we've been here since before 1963, as the constitution states that any person who has been here before the year, that is 1963, before independence, that person or the descendants of that person is a Kenyan citizen. So we are Kenyan citizens until the day the government recognizes us as citizens, that we don't have to go through this discrimination, that we will be considered as other Kenyans, that we can go to the office from Monday to Friday, from morning 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and get out of that office on the same day with our vetting, with our waiting.
Maka,
that
but
is
the
when
community is struggling, we are fighting, we are tired of toiling and walking and moving. Every day is seeking, moving from one government office to another. I mean, it's tedious, it's frustrating, Maka.
Yes, it is tedious, it is frustrating, and that's why the paralegals are there, to give hope to the community. That's what we do on the ground on daily basis. Because you'll find that sometimes a person will even is willing to change their names to a Christian name just to get the document. So for us is to give them hope, for us is to walk with them and guide them. Just giving them hope, not giving up. Don't give up. We are here with you. We are walking with you. We walk with you till the end. And also, we've also already started a community movement whereby we engage the community vibrant youths who can be our ambassadors. Not only, as you know, the paralegals, we are few, we can't access the whole community. So by working with coming up with the ambassadors, these ambassadors will also help us in accessing the larger Kibra community. And in these ambassadors, we don't only deal with Nubians, we also need to deal with other communities. We engage them also so that they can be able to know of our pain and also air our grievances. So that maybe then, just maybe, the government will listen. Just maybe.
Wow. Mustafa, I mean, yes, you started humble beginnings, Nubian Rights Forum. Right now, Mustafa, we both know we both know the spaces you access. We both know the net worth, the networks that you have on your phone, Mustafa, I have seen, I've witnessed some of the efforts you've been putting in place to try and curb this issue. Mustafa, for how long? I mean, this lobbying that you're doing, should we expect any fruits anytime soon?
I think there's a bit of, I wish I had the networks that you're saying, a net worth that you're saying, but inshallah. Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. It's just
I wish I could knock those doors. Yeah? I wish I could knock those doors. But I know someone is watching that is part of the network because of this TV show that is listening, that we as the Nubian, the Somalis, the Swahilis, we have one thing in common, the Islamic faith. That is the reason as to why we are being treated like that. Let's be as factual as possible. Vetting started to be worse after the 1998 bombing. That is when it started pinching us a lot. Before then, our elders walikuwa naambiwa shika masikio, unaweza kushika masikio, you are 18 years, go and get an ID. Yes. The 1998 bombing is the beginning of all our problem. Then we had the 2013 Westgate attack. Yeah?
Then 2015 Garissa attack.
Garissa attack. After Garissa attack, we had the Security Amendments Act that just legalized vetting. So it has been becoming worse and worse and worse by the day. So basically, we have to come and accept as a society, it is because of our name and our religion that we are being vetted, not because of any territory that you are living in. Because at the end of it all, a regular mwananchi does not have the gun to protect the nation. It is the responsibility of the state to protect the citizenry. And then the responsibility of the citizens to collaborate with the government to get security. That said, we have the capacity to stop this problem. We have governors that can pick calls, their phones, and give calls to the president directly, and he has their ears. Yes, we're talking about the aspect of drought, but ask yourself when you're listening to this and watching this, that person that you're talking about drought relief, without an ID, will that person get the relief? Not necessarily. We had the COVID vaccines, COVID-19 vaccines. How many of our people were not vaccinated because they didn't have an ID? Because they had to verify if you're 18 and under which database you're found. Many of our people are being left out because of lack of identity card.
Even right now, the COVID relief that are being supplied.
So Mustafa alone cannot fight this. We've been fighting for this over 10 years. But alhamdulillah, we've begun a conversation. It's about time that we hold hands and say, our communities are suffering. Prioritize identity, because identity is the mother of all rights. You know, Faisal, last time when I was with you here, I told you we need to drive to Garissa. You know, when you're living in Nairobi, you don't know the privileges that you have. When you're getting out of Garissa at the bridge, without an ID, you won't cross. Not unless you have the other ID, that is 1,000 in your pocket, you will cross the first checkpoint. In between Mwingi and Garissa, there are like 5 checkpoints. One of them is a special forces checkpoint. It used to be manned by the military. So without an ID, literally your movement has been curtailed.
You cannot move
even in Nairobi is the same. So it's about time we talk about that. Me, by the way, my network is you who's watching this. You have the power. You have the power to hold accountable these people. The Minister of Defense is a Muslim. He spoke about issues of double registration. It was resolved. We still have like 14,000 people who are left out of the registration, but at least he did something. So imagine if we hold hands and say that it's about time our people should not be discriminated, because what is a name? A rose by any other name will still smell as sweet. Shakespeare alisema hivyo. So because of our name, Mustafa and Faisal, we should not be discriminated. And remember, we are over 5 million people who go through this problem. So it is not the 3 people that we're talking about. It is your brother there, but you have never seen the magnitude of the discomfort. Remember, without an ID, you can't go to college. Now, the old man that got an ID at the age of almost 80, can he get a job?
Where?
All his productive life is gone. So even if it's 1 year of delay, it's like telling someone, you can only work on Monday, the rest will work from Monday to Thursday, and you're paid per day. Will you be at the equal position?
Not really.
So it's about time we speak about equality. The Constitution is very clear. It says no one should be discriminated upon directly or indirectly. It didn't say based on where you're coming from we should be discriminated. So it's an unconstitutional principle. And I have hope that our current president has good interests of the Muslim society. He has appointed a Muslim as the chief of defense. So isn't that not good enough will that we can exploit and say that it's about time that we are treated as equal as other Kenyans. If a father and a mother have ID, why should a child be discriminated? We've already been discriminated for years. At what stage will it end? Last time I remember when I was with you here, we were talking about a girl who was replacing a passport after the 3rd time and she was still going for vetting. So the question is, when will it end? It's now. And it starts with me and you.
Na kama si sasa?
Sasa hivi.
Besides me and you, Mustafa, I'm sure you've met some people. I mean, I'm just going to stick to that. You had met even the previous parliament. You sat or maybe wrote to the Committee on Human Rights and all that.
Yes, actually the Nubian community championed it. They went and petitioned Parliament on the recognition of the Nubian community. The Somali community in Garissa who were affected by double registration wrote petition to Parliament for their registration. So the Nubian community got a positive outcome. They were told that they are bona fide Kenyans and there should be affirmative actions that could allow them to lessen the burden of vetting. But has it been done? We are not being involved in the policy formulation. And what is the long-term solution? For the long-term solution, the burden should be removed from the citizen and put on a document. That if you have a birth certificate that shows your mother and father, the person who has issued that birth certificate is responsible to make sure that that document is authentic. If you can prove the authenticity of the document, you should not be delayed. So our approach is still that we have good laws, but implementation is the problem. But we'll still continue pushing. We've pushed Parliament. Now, the implementation is the problem. But we are still trying to... Kama uko na connection ya prezo, ni connect, eh? Nakumbuka ulikuwa na connection last time.
Yule mwingine.
Hata huyu pia.
The former president.
Our beloved president.
Wewe bado hujakuja.
Kama uko na connection, hata mwenye na watch, kama uko na connection, tusaidie. Kama unaogopa kuongea na yeye, mimi naongea.
I have a friend in the house, lakini siku hizi bana, sijui ni kazi imekuwa mingi. Jamaa ashiki simu zangu bana. Ashiki simu.
Friend wa Faisal, shika tu simu. Alafu tusaidie tupate appointment.
I mean, you know yourselves, all of you who are close to the president. Okay, no, not all of them, but kuna lo shika simu.
We shall have the real talk that people are afraid to have.
And also maybe Faisal, to add on just what Mustafa has said,
yes,
that the Registration of Persons Act states that, it clearly states that upon application for registration document and ID, the person should be issued with the document within 30 working days. 30 working days.
What?
That's what the Registration of the Persons Act. I didn't come up with the Registrations Act. Mustafa didn't. You didn't. It's the government, isn't it? When they came up with this act, did they know that we have people in Garissa, in Marsabit?
Probably not.
In Kwale, in Kilifi?
Probably not.
But they didn't state which person.
They didn't.
That's why we're talking about second-class citizens.
Second-class citizens and discrimination.
Side time.
Yeah.
Side time. But then I'm subjected to vetting, just in case it for my passport, I'm also subjected to vetting. Imagine, yes, it affects all of us.
And the way you're a celeb. Imagine, sir,
my celebrity status does not apply the
And let's not all forget that even our kids will go through the same.
I was in a call just a few minutes before the show, and I'm subjected to vetting, you know. And
yeah, nowadays they call. They no longer want you to go there because they realized it was after the COVID pandemic. Yeah, so nowadays they call you. Now the question is, what if you don't pick up numbers that you don't know?
Right now I'm in studio, nimezima simu. So what if they call me?
How many times have you received those messages? Mustafa? Kwamba tuko na baba nitumie it's me.
Tuma kwa
number. So how do I know that it's legit? It's not coming like the way it's Safaricom unasemaga 00 ni yao. Sasa gavana ni gani?
Also Mustafa, hiyo ni kwa passport. Kwa ID, nowadays before ilikuwa you go, you finish with the elders and then you submit your papers to the registrations office. Nowadays you finish with the wazes, you go home with your papers, you're given a date to go submit it to the registrations office. You wait to be called to be appointed for a vetting. If you don't pick that call, then that's it. Chance yako ya kuwa vetted imesimama hivyo. We have people who have been waiting to be vetted since March last year.
No.
Yes.
It's almost a year now.
Yes. And the people who are now being vetted, understand the next vetting is end of this month, January, maybe Thursday of this month. These people are the people who applied in July and August.
Of last year?
Of last year.
No.
Yes.
You got so many shuke. Guys, honestly, we are laughing about it just to try and laugh away our worries and our sorrows. But honestly speaking, I mean, knowing the situation and having painted the picture, it's sad state of affairs. I don't know for how long, guys. I mean, honestly, for how long? For how long will we sit back and agree to be taken as second-class citizens? Nubian Rights Forum, Maka Yusuf is seeing people every day. Mustafa Mahmoud here, I don't know what, drafting, if it's petitions, if it's applications for court case, whatever he's doing. But he's doing a lot to ensure that at the end of the day, this vetting story is put to rest. That's what they're doing. I hosted them here tonight. I'm talking about this. I'm also telling you that I'm scheduled for vetting. That is what I am doing. What about you? What are you doing back there? What are you doing? Are you not affected by this? Don't you know someone who's affected by this? Honestly, guys, I mean, it's high time. The least you can do, just go on social media, rant about it, shout about it. My ID, my right, Twitter handle, right? It's the movement. My ID, my right on Twitter. That's the least you can do. Go there, shout, and don't you forget, tag the immigration, tag Professor Kithure Kindiki until they hear this message. We need to have this issue to be resolved amicably once and for all. Guys, you're Muslims unapologetically, and you're citizens just like any other citizens. My name is Faisal Kassim. Thank you so much for keeping it live, Real Talk. See you next week, same place, same time.